This is a map of Dubai's train system. It goes in a straight line along Sheikh Zayed Road, Dubai's main highway. And if you live anywhere else in the city and do not own a car, then your only choice is to get a cab to the nearest bus stop and hop on a bus to get to the subway, which does not even go the places where most of the families live or where the schools are. And I know you're probably thinking that Dubai seems like a car-based city, so the infrastructure must have been built around cars. And you would be partially correct, because Dubai has nearly 2 million cars. But what's surprising is that it has less than 200,000 parking spaces. So that's definitely not the reason or an excuse for its horrible public transit system. But instead, it's something much more foolish: terrible design. Dubai is an architectural nightmare, and I've struggled to comprehend the choices the city planners have made here. Even if they built this city for tourists and not the 3.5 million people who actually live here. If you compare Dubai to any other megacity, which gets roughly the same amount of tourists every year, like Singapore and New York, the quickest way to explore these cities is the public transport. Now sure, Dubai's extreme weather must have been a huge factor while designing the city, so bikeable routes were simply not an option, but underground and air-conditioned infrastructure has been proven to work in cities with extreme weather conditions like Montreal, which excels in that area. And what baffles me the most is that instead of fixing the issues within the city, these geniuses spend money on the worst possible things, like these man-made islands, which are the pinnacle of bad design. You see, in Dubai, the land reclamation could not be done using the desert sand because apparently the grains were too big for that. So instead, they decided to dig up the sand from the seabed, burying the coral reefs and turtle nesting sites in the process, which to me is absolutely insane. But the absurdities do not end here. Take a look at the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building. You might be surprised to know that this monstrosity, along with many of these gleaming skyscrapers, are not connected to a sewage system. You may ask why. Well, because in this city, a central sewage system does not exist. And these tankers line up on the streets 3 times a week to carry the waste, and what's even crazier is that this whole city is being built by workers who are immigrants, mostly from India and Pakistan, who are tricked into coming here for a better life and then dumped into labor camps on the outskirts of the city, often with their passports confiscated, and are forced to work 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week on unlivable wages for this abomination to be built. When I started researching for this video, I had no idea it was this bad. I mean, Dubai is shiny and it has skyscrapers, but they are not exactly tourist attractions themselves, because the fundamental design of Dubai, as envisioned by the people who built it this way, lies in 2 main factors: property development rights and resource distribution efficiency. I know this sounds like academic jargon, so here's my best translation. See, because of its location, Dubai was always a trading hub, and in 1966 they struck oil, and at its peak, 60% of Dubai's GDP consisted of oil money, and rulers of the kingdom knew that oil will eventually run out. So they decided to build their economy around tourism and real estate. They brought in foreign developers, usually in a partnership with a local owner or conglomerate, and started leasing their land, where the developers were time-constrained to finish a project and get a return on their investments. Now in this case, if you're a property developer, you can make money on a small footprint only by utilizing the true value of the land. So you have to do 2 things. First, maximize the total sellable floor area, and the only way to do that is to go as high as your budget allows you to go. And second, to do it fast and sell it before the lease expires, which manifests in form of these supposedly glorious skyscrapers, each a world of its own with no central planning, making Dubai seem like a soulless city. And the other thing is that Dubai is a desert, so they have limited resources. In fact, 90% of Dubai's food is imported, and distribution of limited resources to the most amount of people requires building critical infrastructure, which means more roads, more terminals, more trucks and warehouses, plus maintenance, in which the government would have a huge spending stake. And why do that when you can let the private sector do the groundwork? In essence, Dubai is a vanity project, and that was the intended image for the city. The bigger, taller, and shinier it is, the more money will come. The city's planning decisions were not made by urban planners. They were made by the monarchy, and those choices were deemed necessary to attract more investors, and the hype was much needed.